So violence against women in relationships are playing out online. And this is a global statistic, 2010. And I can also give you some more statistics. It's difficult to come across Canadian statistics because this is not something that has been traditionally measured very much. But I can give you a few statistics globally to show what's going on with that. I find this really interesting because research in Argentina shows that a woman's mobile phone is one of the first things destroyed by a violent partner. So when somebody destroys your mobile phone, what are they destroying? Your ability to reach out to other people, perhaps. Your safety network, your social network, right? Interestingly, that is what people are choosing to smash up when they're in a violent situation. A study in Pakistan found that 94% of women respondents received harassing messages and calls from men they didn't know. Just mind-blowing kind of statistic. And a survey in India found that victims of cyberstalking aged 18 to 34 were mostly female. So cyberstalking is an issue. And then a Latvian study found that young women aged 10 to 22 from impoverished regions in particular were the most vulnerable to online solicitation. A US study similarly found that young people who are isolated, who feel understood and might be depressed, and might lack familial support are most at risk of online solicitation. So, I mean, there's lots of kinds of hints here and there about what's going on, and I don't think that Canada at all is immune. As time goes on, we will see these statistics come out, and we will see probably the same stuff going on. Along those lines, then, technology can also be used in oppressive, discriminatory, and stereotyping ways, right? So some examples you see there from video games, right? Some of the really sexualizing images of women, this idea of a boyfriend trainer, some very sexist ideas being played out in games. And there's a lot of reasons for this. I found this really interesting, this study that looked at the gaming industry. They found that most women in game development, so there does seem to be more women getting into game development, but they're not actually designing games. They're doing other things like HR or like finances. They're not actually necessarily doing the game development, and that makes a difference in the way the games are built. There's hardly any women characters in games, right? The women characters that are there tend to be very stereotypical, so body-wise, role-wise, what they're doing, how they fight. I find it really interesting that they fight in really sexualized ways, like moving their bodies in ways that nobody fights like that. Girls don't and can't play games as much and as avidly as boys, so that really changes the dynamic of how these games are built, right? The target audience. So this particular study was looking at how girls play games. They find that girls are playing games in more numbers, but they're not playing in what they consider an expert level. They're not playing like boys who are more playing with expert level. And how do you become an expert? You have time. But girls tend to have more responsibilities at home to take care of younger kids, to help with the dishes and help with cooking. So they don't have the same leisure time to play games the way boys do. This impacts the industry. This also impacts girls' relationship to technology and feeling like, that's for me. I can play that too. I can get as good. I can get into gaming. This is a real industry that I'm interested in. And game advertising, of course, focuses on stereotypical male culture. So what I find interesting is that when we did a study on, like our own little study of Ontario youth, right, and we were looking at what young people like to play, people were saying, oh, you're going to find that young people like to play violent games, so you're going to come up with a game that's not violent, nobody's going to play it. What we found is that young people like to play games with action. They don't necessarily care about violence. They just want some action. They want some fun. So that was a really interesting finding for us because we found that, you know, really a lot of these violent games that tend to take up all the mental space that we have for games is really not what people want, but it's interesting that the industry provides that a lot. Similarly, the industry provides this kind of stereotyping male bro culture, but is that what people want to play? Not necessarily. So somebody who, this woman, Corey Roberts, who's the founder of GameAnatrix.com, a really popular game site, and there's lots of stuff that happens on that site, but a lot of reviews, game reviews, that are well respected. And she is a black woman, and she says, I'm one of those elusive, mythical black women gamers who reportedly do not exist. The first thing I'm asked is how I ended up even playing games, like it's a disease I somehow contracted, and then I'm told how different or how odd I am. So that's still the context that we're in. We're in a context where when women play games at an expert level, when they play them online with others, so this multiplayer context, they're hearing things like, girls who like video games, you only have interest because you're not thin enough to have a real boyfriend. They're being told things like, get back in the kitchen and make me a sandwich, and 10 times worse stuff when it comes to violence, very violent comments, to the point where some women gamers will play in the closet as women. They'll pretend to be men playing online so that they can protect themselves from these type of comments. It's really interesting that it still plays out the same way. So, at the same time that we talk about violence being a real possibility and a real reality in online spaces and using technology, social media also is being increasingly used to promote social change. And I don't want us to forget that, because technology is going to become more and more of our lives as time goes on. It is a big part of our lives. And if we say that we're just going to step away from it because of the violence that we may experience, we lose out on the real opportunities to reclaim technology to do good things, to do the kinds of things that we really want and that we care about. So, of course, a great example of social media, particularly being used for social change, is the whole Arab Spring protests. And all of that was really, as was in the news, promoted through a lot of this technology and these tools. And I also believe that games can help people understand and invite critique of the way systems work. So it's really interesting that this particular author, Ian Bogost, in his book Persuasive Games, talks about how games are a special medium because they can help you understand how a system like the legal system, the school system, can help you understand how that system works. Usually, when you read about the system, if you even get the opportunity to read about these systems, it's still elusive. You don't know how that is connected to that, is connected to that. And it just becomes this big blob of information. But Ian Bogost talks about how a game can allow you to play through that system, help you understand the way that system works, and then show you pockets of where change can happen. So at METRAC, we talk a lot about violence as being a part of the way our systems work. Whether that system be our school system, our legal system, the way our system, our government system works, the way work works, going to work. So we believe that changes need to happen in the system to make it safer for women and youth. Well, games seem to present a very interesting opportunity to do that.